The web is full of people who give away their work for free, some relying on the sales of products or services to support that free content, while others just do it for the love of the game. This category includes bloggers, authors, artists, YouTube creators, and more. Unfortunately, this category of creator is in danger of going extinct because of AI. Let's talk about how in this installment of the AI Hurts Everything series. Now, every action you take has a cost, and too often we look at the benefits of an action and forget to look at the drawbacks. In this series, we're looking at the costs associated with AI in the various sectors in order to have a better understanding of what we're giving up in order to gain the benefits of AI. We're not saying that AI is horrible and it should never be used, but at the same time, we need to understand what those drawbacks are and then properly evaluate whether or not it's a good thing and what we can do to make it better. Now, this video, to be clear, does hit especially close to home for me. If you don't know me, my name is Tim Corey, and I create training content for people both on YouTube as well as on my paid site, IamTimCorey.com. And the way I fund more than 1,000 videos here on YouTube is by selling courses. And so, yes, there is, I don't want to say an ulterior motive because the rest of this video, I'm not going to talk me at all. And I could go into exactly how AI has negatively impacted me. But I want to talk more about everybody's experience, not just one person's. I think it's more important to go that route. So while, yes, this channel is funded by people like you who purchase courses at IamTimCorey.com, there's more to it than just me. So let's talk about everybody else, not just me, because I think it's more impactful that way. So let's start off here where, we're going to kind of weave this narrative of why this is really hurting creators. And this is the first one. Mark Zuckerberg personally authorized Meta's copyright infringement, according to a publisher. So copyright infringement to create LLM models. So large language models take a lot of training information. They take a lot of data in order to create a model that can create something for us, because really what it's doing is it's just regurgitating and reconstituting different things it's learned in a new and interesting, hopefully interesting way. And hopefully new, because we've also seen it doesn't always do new things. But this was created off of copyright work. Now, what is a copyright? A copyright says that I own this thing. So if you own a piece of land and someone else comes along and decides, you know what, I'm going to plant a garden on your land. Well, no, you can't do that. That's my land. You have to get permission to do that. That's what copyright is for a digital world. And it is much more difficult when it's a digital world because people often see, well, there's no danger, right? There's no harm in copying your thing. But yet, yes, there is, right? So if a person put all their effort and work into creating, let's say, a book, and they took a year to craft this book very carefully, and then you say, you know what, I'm going to take it but not pay for it. Well, that's not helping the person who created. And this is what allegedly all of the LLMs seem to have done, as they took copyright information and say, you know what, we're going to steal all of this because we need it. It's important. We need to have this. And this is what this allegation, this lawsuit, this publisher alleges. So the allegation is they illegally used millions of copyrighted works to train AI language system called Llama. Now, if I steal one thing from you, that's theft, and I could be arrested for it. But if I steal a million things from you, or millions of things from you, sometimes that's seen as just, it is what it is, right? And that's what we're doing right here, is we're saying, you know what? If you were an ordinary everyday person and you stole something and it can be proven, then you'd be liable. But if you're a company and you steal millions of people's works, well, we're not going to be so sure if that might not be acceptable. Okay. So the defendants reproduced and distributed millions of copyrighted works without permission, without providing compensation to the authors or publishers. That's what the allegation is, what the lawsuit says. Now, this is what Meta says. This next paragraph, AI is powering transformative innovations, productivity, and creativity for individuals and companies. Stop right there for a minute. Why do you need to say that? What's the value in saying that? What you're saying is, here's all the good stuff. Here's how great this can be, because then they get into justifying why the end justifies the means, right? As courts have rightly found that training AI on copyrighted materials can qualify as fair use. So we're doing all this great stuff, and you know what? That justifies us taking all this information in a way that was not in the contract. Because you know what? It creates this really great thing. So now Anthropic has already paid $1.5 billion to settle a class action lawsuit by some authors, and there are more coming because of the fact that, yes, this is what happened, or what has been alleged to have happened and seems to have been proved that's happened. And, you know, here Meta isn't arguing they did it or didn't do it. What they're arguing is, yeah, we did it, but it should be okay. So this is just a start of, this is how LLMs are built, off of information like this. Now, here's another one, NVIDIA. I'm not sure if you even knew NVIDIA, yes, they have large language models. They can't shake authors' claims that it trained their AI on pirated books. Now, again, if you or I go to a pirate site and get movies or books or music or something like that, if we're, often we're not caught, right? Often people are not caught doing that. But if they are caught, then you face consequences. You face real world consequences. And so they sued NVIDIA more than 2 years ago. So this is part of the problem with with how LLMs are being built is they get to the point where they say, well, it's been so long, it's hard to undo that now. It's been years, but the problem is this is how lawsuits work. Lawsuits aren't an immediate thing. Lawsuits don't happen and have an immediate reaction or immediate outcome. So this is over 2 years ago. They've been sued. And on Tuesday, just recently, now this article came out in May of 2026. So it's about, at this time, a month and a half old or so. But the federal judge largely agreed that they have a case against NVIDIA. So there was a motion dismissed by NVIDIA. They largely said that, you can't just dismiss this. So they used an online repositories hosting pirated books and other copyrighted works. That's the allegation. So the judge dismissed the claim so it dismissed a couple claims out of that, but kept most of them. The plaintiffs are represented by this law firm, which also represents authors suing OpenAI over similar AI training data practices. So again, they're suing NVIDIA, they're suing OpenAI. We saw that Anthropic already settled, and Meta is in the midst of a lawsuit. And these are just singular lawsuits. Yes, they're class action lawsuits, but there are more to come for more categories and other things. But part of it is you have to have discovery to know, did you do this or not? So there is a lot of copyright infringement either being alleged or even being acknowledged. Meta acknowledges that they used it, but they say they had a right to. Anthropic said, hey, we're going to settle on this, probably saying that they didn't they did it, but at the same time paying it off. Okay. This is where it lands. This is the outcome from that. And that is small publishers lost 60% of search traffic as AI shapes or reshapes the web. Now, why did AI reshape the web? Because it used small publishers' content and medium-sized publishers' content and large publishers' content to create the AI, which now is crowding out those same people. The people that LLMs are built on top of are now being crowded out of the marketplace because their information is being reused and they're not getting credit for it. They're not getting the income from it. The large companies are instead. So referral traffic from traditional search engines has declined over by 60% for small publishers. So this report actually breaks out the small publishers, medium-sized publishers, and large publishers. So 60% decline for small publishers, 47% decline for medium-sized publishers, and then 22% decline for large publishers. Now, the reason why the large publishers had less decline is because of the fact that they're already known. Like when you think about going shopping, you see ads all over for different companies to go shop at this company or that company. While there are ads for Amazon, they don't really have to be, right? Because Amazon.com. And so if you want to look for something, you can go to Amazon.com and get it. And that's why there's less damage for large publishers, because people know to go directly to that publisher or know to ask for that publisher and just go directly to that site rather than using the AI responses. But small publishers don't have that luxury, because they rely on people searching for a topic or something like that, and they get their information in front of that person. That person goes, yes, I'm interested in more information about that. So the idea that the small publishers are affected more than large publishers is kind of understandable, and that this report goes into that a bit more. But here's where it really gets into it. You say, well, yes, the traffic is going down, but at some point, AIs are going to start giving those links and saying, hey, here's the answer, but here's a link to the answer, and that's not really having an impact. In fact, chatbots still account for less than 1% of all publisher view referrals. So now this is where, again, you'll hear companies, especially LLMs, are really bad at it, where they will give numbers that sound great. In this case, ChatGPT referrals increased by more than 200% between December 2024 and December 2025. 200% increase, which sounds great. That sounds like, we've got a lot more traffic coming, except that in 2026, ChatGPT accounted for just 0.02% of total publisher traffic. So how is they can increase by more than 200%, but also be only 0.02%? Because they're basically zero before. So anything from 0 to 0 to 1 is a massive improvement. 1 to 2 is a doubling. But then, 2 to 3 gets smaller and smaller as you go until 99 to 100. That's not much of an impact or not much of a change, because you already had a lot of traffic going that direction. But when you have no traffic, you can make, a small change look massive because of that. So what does this mean? It means that publishers see very, very, very little traffic coming from AI, from chatbots or people asking it questions. And yet that's where people are going for all their requests. So what they've done is they've taken all of this information, a lot of it copyright, they've built an LLM, and they're selling that LLM to the consumer and saying, hey, use this instead of going to the publisher's website. Now, they're not saying you can't go there. They're even giving links potentially, but people aren't doing that. So what it's done is it's taken away all the traffic from the person who created the content and it's given it to the large LLM companies. Now, you may say, well, this is a free thing. No, it's not. Even if you use ChatGPT free, which, first of all, we're getting ads pretty soon for that, which doesn't sound real fun. But also, even most accounts, you're paying for that. And the ones that are free, it's actually being subsidized by people who are investors. So it's being paid for. But the way the web works radically changed with LLMs, but not for the better. It changed much, much worse, for the worse for these creators, because we used to have Google, which wasn't perfect, better in the early days than it is, later. But what it would do is it would elevate pages, and you would do search engine optimization to try and get people to go to your site versus somebody else's site. And the more people Google referred to you, the better your site did, the more, people experienced value on your site and then hopefully paid for something on your site. But that model is going away. As you saw, the traffic from Google is significantly down, and it's not being replaced by something else. So it's going to crush out these creators. That's a problem, because if you're a publisher and your traffic is down 60% in a year, and it's going down even more, even if you're down 22%, that's a layoffs are coming type issue. Down 60% is the doors are closing soon type issue. So what happens when they get choked out? Well, no more new things get created by those people, potentially. Or if they do, less and less people see them. So this is not something that's going to get better anytime soon. There's a continuous downward line from Google search between January 2024 and February 2026. It does not show an inflection point suggesting stabilization, meaning it's going to continue. So Google's search globally fell from roughly 8.5% of page views to 5.8% in just those 2 years. It's significantly dropping. So there's an expected additional 43% decline in search traffic over the next 3 years, meaning that initial downward trend isn't leveling off. It's going to continue to go down even further. So, and then the smallest publishers face the steepest exposure, meaning they're the ones that's dropping right off the cliff. And at some point, those doors close and they don't open again. So what's happening is we're shifting more and more money to the LLM companies because they're getting more and more of the traffic, although they got to somehow make money on that. But we're shifting more and more money there. And of all the publishers, we're shifting more and more money towards the biggest publishers. So what we're doing is we're crowding the market out for anything that is different, unique, boutique. And we're doing more and more of it's Walmart or nothing type of thing. So it's no more the corner shop. It's no more the local grocery store. It's Walmart or nothing. And that's where we're heading towards with this change. Now, Brave New World, which that's the title. So, new report warns generative AI is already costing creators a livelihood. So built on evidence from over 10,000 creators. It's already doing what it's already doing to create careers in a fight for fairness, and it's only just beginning. So let's talk about this. Work is being scraped without permission. This is the one I really want to highlight because we have built a web where sharing is a good thing, where we encourage, open source. I got a whole other video on that. But we encourage, blogs that are just available to read. And we encourage YouTube videos like this one where you can just go and watch it. And this has helped person to person. It's helped a lot of people, millions of people, billions of people. But now that work is being taken, scraped by LLMs, and then repackaged for people. So that now you go to the LLM for that information instead of to the people, which leaves creators wondering whether their career can remain sustainable. So by taking it and shifting it somewhere else where they don't have control, they don't have the ability to say, these are my words, where they don't have the ability to say, what, you have to pay for this part of it. They don't have that ability anymore. And so now they're wondering, can I make a living? This is a dangerous place to be for our creator ecosystem. So this is talking about the AIO CEO, Rachel Hill, yada, yada. But basically, work taken without permission, jobs lost, and creators pushed into competition with systems built on their own intellectual property. So that last line is really damning. The idea that you're competing with systems that were built on your property. You're competing with yourself, only you don't control that other self, right? You're competing with the stuff that you created, but that stuff is something that you don't control anymore, but yet it's being given out and distributed. So that's your competition now. You are your own competition. And the more you create, the more you compete with yourself. That is going to destroy the current way we do things online. Now, to be clear, and I want to pause here for a minute. Change happens. Change is a reality of how we do things. And the way that, a simple example going back years and years, but when the first vehicle came out, we started seeing, I wasn't there for it, but people started seeing vehicles, the more that Ford created vehicles and the more those that roll out off the assembly line, the more that endangered the horse and buggies and the people who took care of horses and the stables and all the rest. That endangered them. And I get that yes, that did endanger those people and it did change how things were done. And it pushed out or changed a whole industry. And so we got to be careful not to say, well, change is bad. We can't have any change. That's not good either. We need to allow for change. However, we also need to make sure we're putting proper guardrails around how that change gets done. Otherwise, it's just one big land grab, right? So the digital ecosystem has worked in the past because we had rights. Because when you said, this is how my work can be used, you could back that up. I actually have a company that works on looking for my work that's being used by someone else, that's being stolen. And it happens all the time where people will say, hey, I downloaded Tim's course and now I'm going to upload it and sell it to you for a fraction of what Tim charges. But that's not right. That's illegal, right? And so I have a company that goes out and looks for them and talks to the search companies and talks to the hosting companies and says, hey, shut this down because this isn't right. And, so I have a whole team that works on that. It's an outsourced service because it's important. Otherwise, what happens is two things. First of all, if I let it happen, then I can lose some of my own copyright benefits because there is something said for you have to protect your copyright, otherwise you lose it. But also the fact that I have the ability to say, if you want this, you have to come through me. Because you need to support me in order for me to do more of this content. And yes, that can be a little weird at times where I say, you know what? I love for everybody to have everything, but I have to also be able to eat. And so what I create, some of it has to be paid content that people can't just take from me without any compensation. So we've had those walls in the past where copyright has protected the digital creations. Because it's very easy to copy digital creations, where a person will say, "Hey, simple example, let's just say I don't, but let's just say I sell a PDF, and this PDF I put a lot of work into, and I sell this PDF, and someone says, I bought one copy, but then I gave a copy to all my friends, because it didn't cost you anything to create those other copies." But that's not how that works, right? I get to protect that. Because, it did cost me because now those, let's say 10 people aren't going to potentially pay for my PDF. Now you might say, well, no one's going to. Then they shouldn't have it, right? That's what it comes down to. You shouldn't benefit from what you don't pay for if it's a charge required. We've had these regulations in the past. Now with LLMs, what they've done is say, you know what? We're going to take all of that content and we're going to use it, but we're not going to pay for it. And it's kind of the too big to fail or the too big to stop, where they say it's really important though. Like Meta said, we create this really great thing that benefits everybody. So therefore we should be above the law when it comes to copyright. And this is the danger that we're facing right now with AI, where people are competing with their own content and losing. Okay, so this is, if you are in the JavaScript community, you're familiar with Dr. Axel. This man has done a lot to create content, both free and paid, for the JavaScript community. And I found this terribly sad when this came across my desk. The income from my book sales, this is from his perspective, went from being enough to live off of in 2024 to zero in 2026. Enough to live off of to zero. There's always going to be a decline in book sales, right? Your most loyal fans, the people who are banging down the doors, they're the ones getting the pre-orders or the early versions of a book. And you're going to have that long tail that goes down over time. That's, to be fair, it's always going to be a downward slope unless you're doing something to keep boosting that. However, to go from having enough money to live off of to nothing, that's a lot. And yet the traffic to my blog and my books, which were free to read online, again, here's a person giving away free stuff. Now, there's a way to support him, buy his book, but you can read it for free online. So the traffic to my blog and my books increased beyond what I can afford. So the traffic went through the roof. The sales went to zero. Now, why did that happen? Virtually all traffic comes from AI crawlers. So there's no ad income. So there's not even ad income, and yet the cost for hosting that content is going through the roof because of AI crawlers. They're taking, and giving nothing back from this, to the point where they're putting him into debt because his costs went from livable income to zero, and then his costs for the web traffic went through the roof. That's not okay. So AI companies were stealing his work. So what is his conclusion? I'm taking my blog and my books offline. So he can't afford to keep them online, and he's not getting any benefit from having them online. They're just being stolen. So a person who was a pillar in the community, giving back over and over and over, month after month, year after year, to the JavaScript community, and now all of his content has been taken offline by him because he can't afford to keep it online, and he's getting no benefit from having it there. So we are right now losing people like this over and over and over again, where what we used to have, we're not going to have anymore. So, by the way, you can still, I would encourage you to check out the Tuality.com. Notice all the links down in the description or down on the bottom here. Follow those links. But this one especially, you can still buy his book on PayHip. So if you want the book, go buy it there. Support a creator. Stack Overflow. We've heard a lot about Stack Overflow. I've got some perspective on this, but Stack Overflow's forum is dead thanks to AI, and some of you may be cheering because people in some ways hated Stack Overflow. But the company is still kicking thanks to AI. So let's talk about why. Let's start with this graph. This graph, I think, is super telling. Notice it starts at zero. There's no funkiness with the graph here. It starts at zero, goes to 300,000. Number of questions asked monthly. Okay, now this includes the deleted questions that were, bad questions, etc. So as you can see, by about 2012, 2013, it was up near the top of its overall usage, with around 270, 280,000 questions a month being asked on Stack Overflow. And it maintained that off and on. It dropped down about 200,000 during a 2020 timeframe, but jumped back up during COVID. But then notice where it says ChatGPT launched. Notice that cliff that dropped off, where now the number of questions being asked on Stack Overflow is virtually zero, where it took this site and basically just took in a nosedive. Now, again, I want to be clear. Yes, there is a case for, the horse and buggy are no longer needed because we have cars. I get that argument. However, what AI has done is taken all this content and put it into AI. Now, we know this for certain because Stack Overflow decided to monetize their back catalog of content. They said, hey, we're going to sign a deal to have you pay for that content. Now, even with that signing of the big deal for for AI, usage to use their catalog, they have done cuts and cuts and cuts, including mass layoffs, in order to try and get their bottom line up. So they still have a generative AI add-on powered by the millions of questions and answers in the site throughout the years. Okay, so they still have that, but basically it's that $200 million of licensing for user-generated content, or I think it's 100 and some million dollars. I forget how much it was for Stack Overflow. Reddit was the 200 million. But notice what's happening. Stack Overflow was a site where I contributed. I was one of the higher contributors on Stack Overflow to both questions and answers, mostly answers. And, it was something that I gave a lot of time to because I was trying to give back to the community. Now, my goal was to help other developers. That work was taken and sold. Now, the way the licensing worked was that Stack Overflow had the right to do that. They had in their agreement the right to take my work and resell it. Now, I'm not sure of all the ins and outs of how that worked, but evidently, at least, they had those rights. But what happened was I didn't intentionally give my work to AI. I gave my work to community. But then that work was taken, sold, and then resold back to you. Because again, we cannot think of AI as free. AI is not free. AI is being paid for either by investors or by you. Okay, I pay for AI every month. Some people pay for one or more AIs every month, but you're paying for getting these answers back out that you used to get for free from Stack Overflow. I don't love that. But here's the real trick. That data is increasingly aging. Software development is not a field where an answer from 10 years ago is necessarily relevant anymore. Now, there are a lot of answers that could be mostly relevant, but most of the time, the answers need to be closer to the modern day. But yet, remember the Stack Overflow graph here, where questions are being asked at this rate and then being answered. So these questions and answers at about 250 to 300,000, or almost 300,000 a month, well, they're no longer being asked. They're down to zero now. So there's no new questions and answers being generated, or practically none. So the LLMs are basing their information off of increasingly older and older content, which is getting less and less valuable. But people like me are not rushing out to Stack Overflow to answer new questions. I'm not going to go to Stack Overflow and answer any more new questions because I think why would I? Why would I do that just so you can get paid? That's not my goal. My goal is not to get you paid. My goal, you being Stack Overflow, my goal is to help the community, but that's not what's going to be happening. They're going to get paid and they're going to charge the community, you, to then consume that content that I gave away for free. I don't want to do that. So more and more people are not answering. In fact, you saw, again, 200 to 250,000 questions are not being asked every month anymore on Stack Overflow. So the people are no longer generating the answers. And to be clear, AI relies on those answers to be able to generate its own content. So more and more of the content is no longer from humans. And yes, it can get its answers from other AI answers, but that's more and more eating its own tail. So more and more people like Dr. Axel and others are pulling their content away saying, hey, I can't afford to fund the LLM, right? I can't afford to take all the costs and give you all the benefits. So more and more, the content is not going into the LLMs that's going to be of value. And no, it can't generate its own value. That's the whole reason we have huge data sets, because it needs to be able to build off of somebody else's value. And there's less and less of that to be had. So AI is killing All About Berlin. All right, so All About Berlin is a travel site all about Berlin. So this has been running since 2017, and notice the growth. The growth in this channel, yeah, it was up and to the right, pretty much, and then the Google overview went live, and that traffic has gone down significantly over the past year or so. So when you Googled something, you used to get a link to my website. Now you get a page of ads, which we're all annoyed by this. You get a page of ads, then an AI generated answer trained on my content, and then finally a link to my website. So this has a devastating impact on traffic. So you're not getting the value from this website because the person consuming it is going to be reading that AI generated content and going, cool, that's what I needed. So so this person is competing with themselves, and they're losing. This is not an isolated case. Many website owners have reached out in private to commiserate. Some have paywalled their work. Others have given up and moved on. So these are the two possibilities anymore. It's either you paywall your work and hope that AI doesn't get around that, because again, copyright has been trampled over repeatedly with these AIs. But hope you can protect your work, but in a walled garden, or you have to just give up and move on. And neither of those is good for the community, because you as a consumer lose your ability to find free work that's not AI and sketchy, or you have to pay, and you then have to pay per creator, per source that you want information from, and that's not good. That's not helpful. So now they keep their websites online. Some do, but they no longer update them. It's just not worth it. So now we're getting more and more. What content is out there is older and older, or just taken offline. And so the web is rotting. The content, the entire web was built on these pillars of free content. The fact you go to Google and say, hey, how do I do this? And find someone that will tell you how to do it. Someone will show you how to do it in a video. Someone will give you expert advice for free. This is what the web was built on. This is how we all operate. We've made Google into a verb. I Googled something, right? And that's the equivalent of when I was growing up, I looked it up in the encyclopedia. No, now I go to the Google and I find a person that's showing exactly how to do it, exactly what to do, etc. But no longer, because that part of the web is going away. It's rotting. It's becoming stale. It's being turned off. It's being paywalled. All because LLMs came along, took all the data, clear cut all the data, and said, okay, now pay us. So it's getting worse, or it will get worse. Last week, Google made 2 announcements. AI-generated answers will replace search results entirely. I've already seen this. I hate it. And they will have ads in them. So this is the future of the internet. No websites, just a chat bot with ads. That's a really bad internet. It may feel great when you have an answer come out of the AI and it sounds great and all the rest, but those answers are going to get worse and worse and worse as the content the AI is built upon gets older and older and less reliable. More and more of it's generated by AI itself. So you have this echo chamber, this telephone game of one AI tells the next AI, which tells the next AI, and pretty soon you have just nonsensical information because of it. And we have nothing to fall back to because all of the content creation has been pretty much destroyed. AI slop is disrupting YouTube, and it might be too big to stop. This is from 2025, September. We're blurring the lines between user-generated content and premium professional content. We've been very, very fortunate. YouTube is full of great content. Exclude me for a minute. I'm not talking about myself. There's a lot of great content I go to when I need help with something. And there's a lot of great people that will give great information, show you how to do something, that will train you up in something for free in a professional way, from professionals to people who are not yet professionals. And now that's being disrupted. It's disrupting the creator economy in the process. We're destroying a whole economy. Okay. Data suggests that AI slop could have an adverse effect on consumer sentiment. Could? I don't think that's a question anymore. I think it does, right? That adults found, or a survey of 3,000 adults found that people were less likely to purchase products advertised on web pages they believe were AI generated, even if they weren't. I know I've been there. I've started to see ads for, like, you look for a shirt and you look at that person, you're like, that's not a real person. That's AI. Why would I buy a shirt that I only can see an AI image of? Because we've all been on Temu or other places like that where you're like, oh, this is great. And you get it and you're like, that has nothing to like what the picture was, because it's fake. It's a fake picture. Well, this is even worse, where it's not how it actually lays on a human. Like, it's not how it actually fits in it, how it moves when a person walks, etc. That's abnormal, and so that's just fake. And so trust dropped by 50% when response perceived content as AI generated, which also means that even good content is now going to be more scrutinized and potentially be accused of being AI content, because your perception is you're looking for this AI content. If you think you see it, well, now you're going to start throwing things out that are good content. Okay. AI sludge also risks diluting creators that have built careers out of making content for the platform with an original human touch. Again, that'd be me. Okay. So I'm not planning on going anywhere, but that is hurting me. Okay. Oil last year, he's seen his characters hijacked by AI generated copycat videos. Again, taking what this person created, this Corey Williams, taking what he created and then copying it, creating AI slop versions of it, and now diluting his content because there's a whole bunch of replicas that were cheaply made based upon what he created. Okay. So this is hurting his views. And the only people that's really generating or helping is the AI generators. Fighting back is exhausting. It's going to be a full-time job to report all the AI fakes. And that's the thing. He's unsure what YouTube would even do about it. This has been an ongoing issue with YouTube and other major platforms. Google, which is also, owns YouTube, and others, where you go to contact them, you don't get a person, you get an AI. And the AI doesn't necessarily answer correctly and doesn't really understand what you're saying. And it sometimes hallucinates the answers and it causes all kinds of problems. And you don't have the ability to push back, where you might get a copyright strike because of something that somebody else copied from yours. But yet when you go to dispute that, they're like, nope, that's a copy. These are problems. Not talking to a real person is a problem. And fighting back is exhausting. So what people are doing is they're leaving. Okay. So the bottom paragraph, many creators have already started diversifying their income beyond social video content, tapping into premium channels. Premium as in paid. As in, they're putting their content behind paywalls. Sound familiar? That's what's happening in a lot of places. Now, these are some of the ways that AI is being used to even push out people. Syndicated content in the Sun Times special section include AI-generated misinformation. This is from 2025. They came out with a summer reading list. Many of the books on the list don't exist. Okay, but it's in the Sun Times, right? The titles and the book summaries were dreamed up by artificial intelligence, hallucinations. So not only is this taking some writer's job, because some writer should have been paid to do this themselves. Now, in this case, they say that a third-party company was that writer. So they instead of doing themselves, just decided to have AI do it. But it took somebody's job. And then, do you feel confident in anything else the Sun Times generates? Probably not, because if this is clearly AI-generated content, What else is not as clearly AI generated content? Is that news article really true, or is it mostly true but it's got some AI hallucinations in it? Now, this is one of the things I want to highlight because people tell me all the time, I'm one of the good ones. I use AI in a safe way. You can. I do. I try to. And I still get burned, but I try to. So I'm not saying that you never can, but let's read this quote. Stupidly, and it's 100% on me, I just kind of republished this list that an AI program spit out. Now, says this person, a longtime journalist. Usually, it's something I wouldn't do. This is the danger of AI, is you say, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that until you do, right? I mean, even if I'm not writing something, that's already a red flag. I'm at least making sure that I correctly source it and vet it. They're saying, at least, I at least do this. But they didn't. They didn't do that. Is that slippery slope of, well, I'm just going to use it to punch up my writing. Well, I'm going to review everything it does. Well, I'm at least going to check the sources. Well, most of the sources I'm going to check. I just cranked it out quick. So I definitely fail at that task. Okay, so I at least do this, but I fail at that. At the least I do. This is from actually 2023. This is an older one. I thought it was kind of funny in a lot of ways, but also insidious in how even the early looks at AI, and this is only going to get worse, the early looks at AI and how it could be used to take away creative jobs, take away journalists, take away people who are doing this work of generating these articles. Sports Illustrated published articles by fake AI-generated writers. So there was Drew Ortiz at Sports Illustrated had a biography on their site. There was nothing to prove that Drew Ortiz existed. So Drew Ortiz doesn't seem to exist. No presence, no publishing history. Even more strangely, his profile photo on Sports Illustrated is for sale on a website that sells AI-generated headshots. Okay, now you might say, well, that's circumstantial. I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe they just used his picture, and maybe he doesn't have a whole lot of social media presence. Sure, except for the fact that somebody else came out and said that, yeah, not just the AI's headshots are AI generated, at least some of the articles themselves are. But then it gets worse because these AI generated personas are periodically scrubbed from existence in favor of new ones. So this was it David Ortiz? Drew Ortiz. So Drew Ortiz disappeared from Sports Illustrated's site entirely, and Sora Tanaka took his place and took all those articles that supposedly Drew had written, changed the byline to now say Sora Tanaka. So Sora took over all those articles, claiming them as her own, and yet Sora 2 doesn't exist. Each time an author was switched out, the post they supposedly penned would be reattributed to the new persona. Again, this is 2023. This is 3 years ago. They were using AI to try and cut corners and take away the jobs of journalists. These AI-generated personas, this back in February when the company first started publishing AI-generated health advice, stop for a minute there. AI-generated health advice. Terrifying. Because health isn't something where you get close enough, right? Or you compile it and find out it doesn't work and try again, right? Because that's what you do with code. Right? We have the AI write some code and it compiles and goes, oops, that didn't work, and it tries again. Or we compile it and go, doesn't work. Or we write unit tests and go, those tests failed. And it goes, oh, you're absolutely right. Let me redo that. That can be okay, kind of. It's not, but it's better than health advice, because health advice, you don't take, let's say, a bunch of pills and go, oh, you know what? Those were really bad combinations. Or you don't eat certain foods and go, oh yeah, that did the exact opposite of what I was hoping for. And let's try again, right? AI-generated health advice is terrifying. So It first started publishing AI-generated health advice at its magazine Men's Journal. We found that its first story was riddled with errors, prompting it to issue a massive correction. The first story of the AI-generated health advice was riddled with errors. But how do you find out that it's riddled with errors? How do you verify? Well, you go to a source, right? Not an AI, because the AI is the one that created the errors. You have to go to a primary source. But yet, if less and less of them exist because they're being scraped by AI and they're being destroyed, well, then there's less and less places to go to find primary sources to verify this information. Pretty soon you're just trusting the AI is right, even though it isn't. So this is eroding readers' trust. Absolutely. Absolutely. Why would I purchase, any of these magazines or papers or anything else, knowing that the content may or may not be true, and I might not be able to tell? I don't trust that. It's not just a couple. We caught CNET, Bankrate, Gizmodo, AV Club, BuzzFeed, and USA Today with AI-generated junk. Again, from 2023. It's not getting better. So what can we do? Because right now, this is destroying the creative community. It's destroying creators. It's shutting down websites. It's taking all of our content that was protected and opening it up for free, which destroys income streams. It's destroying livelihoods. That's some really bad stuff. And quite frankly, I think there should be some significant consequences for that. And I hope there are. But until then, what can we do? Because I don't like this to be just a woe is me, woe is us. The world is ending. The world's on fire. Let's go home now. That's not helpful. I think there are things we can do. I think that there are things that are really important that we do. So first off, protect your work whenever possible. If you're creating work, protect that work. And you know what? I'm not doing this real well. And that's something I'm trying to figure out how to do well. Because I want everyone to have a great education in C#, not just those who can afford it. So if I just put stuff behind a paywall, make all of my content paid, that's not going to help anybody. So, a lot of my traffic does come from YouTube. And so I can't just say, hey, I'm going to not put anything on YouTube. But maybe I do more things where you have to sign up, or you have to log in somewhere in order to get free content. I already do some. You go to imtimcorey.com, you can get a free course right now. You can get started there. You can see the benefits of the courses I create. You can create free content, get free content there. But more and more creators have to think, how do I protect my work? Because it's not being protected by copyright anymore. So you got to figure out how to protect it better. Number 2, fight for your rights. We do have copyright still. Copyright still exists. It's just not being followed. So you have to fight for your rights. And that is exhausting. And it's going to take joining class action lawsuits. It's going to take saying, no, you cannot do this, and pushing back in order to hopefully protect yourself. Number 3, push for stronger regulation. So more legislation that is clearer about what is and is not acceptable. The idea that it's somehow fair use because an LLM is using all the content in the world doesn't seem right. I think there should be more legislation around making sure that it's very clear that can't just be a thing where we just take because we're big enough. This is a bully mentality. I'm big enough, I'm strong enough, therefore I get to take it. Might makes right. I don't agree with that. So number 3, push for stronger legislation. Number 4, go to the source for help, not just AI. This is one that takes a deliberate step, but it's one that you can do every single day. It's one that you can do every time you're looking up something. First of all, ask for the source. It's always good to verify the source, because too often I have asked for the source included, and then I've looked at the conclusion that AI said, went to the source and saw the source said the exact opposite. So the source is saying one thing, the AI conclusion is the exact opposite. So just going to the source helped me verify that no, that's a hallucination. But also it helped the creator. They go to the source and go, ooh, some good content here. I at least see the ads. If it's a ad generated or ad funded page where it's an actual person going to see that content. So go to the source for help, not just the AI. At the very least, just go and look at it and make sure that you see the ads or somehow benefit that creator, but also verify that what you're seeing in the AI is actually true. Number 5, support what you value. It's as clear as that. Support what you value. And this is not a pitch to buy my stuff. So let's keep me out of this. Support what you value. I have found myself paying for certain things recently that I would not have otherwise paid for. I pay for a newsletter around AI and what's happening in the financial space because I find it valuable. There's a lot of great content in there and I value that content. So I don't want that to go away. Therefore, I pay a little bit for it. Not much, but some. Find a way, Patreon isn't great because if you pay less than about $4 or $3, you're not paying anything to the creator. So that's not great, but you can use other things. The buy me a coffee links. Use one of those every once in a while. Just give some value to the things that you value. Give back something to say, hey, yeah, this is valuable. Even there are some things. There's some things online that are, I guess, digitally nice. Like GitHub stars, right? You can star a project, and that's kind of shows that it's valuable. And quite frankly, there's not really a whole lot of value that comes from that, other than the owner can say, hey, I got this many more stars and more people, and it's more popular, so therefore it might be recommended more. Although again, AI, that's a problem. But yeah, some of that is valuable, but it's not especially valuable. A YouTube star is great, and it hurts you nothing to do that. So just click it and show it you've found value. But try and find other ways that can be more financially valuable to support what you value, what you think is valuable. Because otherwise what happens is those things go away. So we want to make sure that we protect what is valuable. Not everything is valuable. Not every blog on the web is worth saving, me, mine included. But there are things that are valuable, and you should support those things so they stick around. All right. So that's my conclusion from here. This one hurts because AI really does hurt creators. It hurts people who are trying to give back to the community. And that's, I think, the worst part is it's not hurting people who are just out for a quick buck. It hurts the people who are genuinely looking to help others, and instead they're getting hurt. So I would encourage you to do what you can to offset those things and kind of protect what you value. All right. Thanks for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.